Welcome to
the Plant-Based Podcast.
In case you didn't know already, plants are amazing. You can
Eat them,
wear them,
drink them,
nourish your skin with them,
grow them,
love them,
and be inspired by them. So why not join us on the Plant-Based Podcast as we speak to the movers, shakers, and growers in this amazing plant world.
This episode of the Plant-Based Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Natural Grower. Launched in 2019, their award-winning liquid fertiliser and soil conditioner is made entirely from maize. Visit naturalgrower.co.uk to nurture your soil and boost your plants and veg. Enter PBP15 for a 15% discount as a PBP subscriber.
Hi everyone. So in this episode of the Plant-Based Podcast, Michael and I are going to be talking about plant recipes. That's right, so plant-based eating. Both of us are foodies. So I'm going to talk through my reasons for eating a plant-based diet, and I've got some really cool recipes that some guys on social media have sent over, and I've also got a few book recommendations for you as well, along with my favourite recipe of all of the plant-based recipes. I absolutely love it, which I'll tell you about soon. And Michael, he'll be talking again about plant-based recipes, but he's got some really awesome people from social media to send in some sound bites of their favourite recipes as well. So it's a foodie episode, but of course it's all about plants. So I thought, first of all, to get things going, I would ask a friend of the podcast, Hench Herbivore. So Paul Curtin, known as Hench Herbivore, is a vegan nutritionalist and a personal trainer. And I have had the pleasure of working out with Paul. He really put me through my paces. But he is inspirational and he's really well known in the vegan community. He posts loads of plant-based recipes online. He has an ebook out. And he was actually one of the very first podcasts that we recorded in Series 1. So if you're interested in finding out more about plant-based diets, then check out our library of episodes and find the one with Hench Herbivore. Because it was actually the very day after that podcast that I decided to cut out dairy from my diet as well. Having been vegetarian for many years before that, I actually decided to go vegan after that. So there you go. So I thought it would be really good to kick off the show with a little chat, a few words from Hench Herbivore about the benefits of plant-based eating.
When it comes to nutrition, it's so confusing. Everyone's got their own opinion. Opinions vary wildly. The trouble is, most scientific studies on nutrition are funded by the industries that stand to profit from a positive finding. As such, they are 4 to 8 times more likely to do so. So, how do we know the truth of it? Well, there's an organisation called nutritionfacts.org. It's a team of something like 200 research scientists. And they look at every single English language nutrition paper that comes out each year to see who funded it. So is there the potential for bias? Was it good science, or was it set up in a way, such that they can find a false positive and put a good spin on it for the industry that funded it? And they report their findings via bite-sized videos on YouTube and on their site nutritionfacts.org. What they found is that a whole foods, plant-based diet, so a diet centered around legumes, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, herbs and spices, can prevent 14 of the 15 leading causes of death in the West, the other being accidents. So just look where you're going. It can treat most of them, and it can reverse 5 of our top killers, including killer number 1, heart disease. It's so powerful. At this time of the coronavirus, it's important to know 95% of coronavirus fatalities had pre-existing comorbidities. Diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, obesity, all the things that can be prevented, treated, and as I say, oftentimes even reversed with a healthy enough diet. So why is this one eating plan so powerful? It's down to the gut microbiome. The largest inroads into nutritional science in the last 14 years have been relative to the microbiome. So what I mean by that is the bacteria that we invite to live in our colon that are predicated on the foods that we eat. Now, there are hundreds of different types of bacteria that can live in the colon, but broadly they fit into two overarching categories, what we call the Prevotella type bacteria and Bacteroides. Now, the Prevotella strains, they improve digestion, they produce vitamins and help train the immune system, they speed our metabolism, so play a huge part in weight maintenance, and they help to balance our hormones. In fact, 90% of our dopamine is actually produced in the gut if we're eating a healthy enough diet anyway. So it's not just physical, but mental health too. One of the most impressive facts is that the short-chain fatty acids that they produce modulate our expression of HMG-CoA reductase. This is the rate-limiting factor in our production of cholesterol. They act to lower our cholesterol in the same way that powerful statin drugs do, but without side effects like elevated cancer risk and muscle wastage. As time goes on, we're going to hear a lot more about short-chain fatty acids and how essential they are to health in the mainstream. Bacteroides strains of gut bacteria are pathogenic. They cannot ferment and produce short-chain fatty acids like Prevotella can. They putrefy, creating toxins. This wreaks physical devastation on the body, driving physical disease, but can affect mental health too. Toxic breakdown products like putrescine and cadaverine drive depression and anxiety, and cortisol drives those, plus dementia too. Only 1% of the genes that instruct the metabolic processes that keep us alive are our own. 99% belong to these bacteria. They are that crucial to our health. Okay, so you now know that you want lots of the lovely Prevotella strains of gut bacteria and few of the Bacteroides strains. How do you go about that, I hear you ask? So quite simply, the healthful Prevotella strains, they eat soluble fibre and they eat resistant starch, which is found in insoluble fibre. Basically, they are whole foods vegans. Legumes, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds. If you eat one of those, within a couple of weeks, you're going to be Prevotella dominant and you're going to be laughing. The Bacteroides strains, they eat everything else. Animal proteins, animal fats. Alcohol not only feeds Bacteroides, but kills Prevotella. And then things like refined plant foods like, white flour, refined oil, refined sugars. These all feed the bad bacteria, so avoid those as far as possible. For anyone interested to find out more about this, an amazing book, Fibre Fueled, was released on the 12th of May by Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, also known as the Gut Health MD on Instagram. It's a real treatise on everything gut microbiome. It's selling like hotcakes, healthy hotcakes. So it's looking like it's going to become a bestseller and really change the landscape of how, again, people in the mainstream think of health. And I got to read an advanced copy, and I got to say it is fantastic. I can't recommend it highly enough. If you're wanting to live the longest, happiest, healthy life you can.
Well, there we go. So that's kicked off the episode, hasn't it? It's pretty powerful stuff. We know that plant-based Eating is so good for us, and the science is there to back it up. So lots of people ask me why I eat a plant-based diet and how I made my decision. And I think that many people who do decide to eat plant-based do it often because of selfish reasons, like me. I did. I kept getting really bad indigestion, and I simply couldn't get rid of it. And someone said to me, why don't you try plant-based eating? And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can give up cheese, if I'm honest with you. You know, I don't eat meat and fish anyway, so I don't know if I can give up my cheese and biscuits and, you know, a odd Snickers. But then we done our podcast with Paul, and I realised that it was the right thing to do. So the very next day I thought, okay, the science is there, I'm going to go plant-based. And I did, and I've never looked back. And actually within about 3 weeks, my indigestion that I had had on and off for years, and I had loads of investigations into why I was getting it, it basically pretty much went. So I know that it helps. It makes me feel so much more alert. I have more clarity and focus. I have more energy, that's for sure. I never really get the 3 p.m. lull. Although saying that, during the pandemic and lockdown, I have a bit, because I've had some crisps and biscuits. Plant-based. Well, not plant-based, but vegan, obviously, still. But there you go. So I done it for selfish reasons. But then after that, I learned more about plant-based eating and the whole reasons for being vegan, and it's much more to me now. It isn't just about eating plants for my own selfish purposes. It's also helping the planet, and of course it's helping animals, but that's maybe for another podcast. So I generally in a day eat breakfast, lunch and a meal in the evening, and they'll almost all be completely plant-based as much as I possibly can. And lots of people say, well, what do you eat? Do you always eat curry? Do you just have toast or something? And there's just so much resource out there for plant-based recipes. I mean, you only need to look up on Instagram just vegan food or plant-based recipes, or there's a cool hashtag called Evolving Vegan that has tons of different really delicious and easy to make recipes. So there's just so much food that you can have. You never need to worry about not having enough food, believe me. Oh, and also, when I thought that I couldn't give up cheese, after those first 3 weeks, I have never touched cheese since. And even when I see it, there is literally no temptation. It's like my body and brain have just forgotten all about it and don't need it anymore. So you don't have to worry about getting over that kind of stage of worrying that you might miss something, because you kind of retrain your brain. So there's a few books I'm going to tell you about before I give you some cool recipes. Books that I've used. There's So Vegan in 5, which is really awesome. They have some they're on Instagram and Facebook and everything, and they do some really cool video recipes, so you can follow along with those. And I actually had the katsu curry. So the katsu curry is made with tofu. It is so delicious. So it's like fried in a crunchy sort of cornflake batter. It is absolutely delicious. That's amazing. But they do loads of really cool stuff. And then there's Bosch. Bosch have got a couple of books. The one I've got right with me now is called Healthy Vegan, and on the front it's basically got like a massive burger. And the burger, I'm assuming, is made from mushroom. I haven't made that one yet, but I'm just going to flick through. So there's like barbecue, portobello and potato salad. That's really good. I've had that one before. Crispy tofu satay bites. So yeah, you don't have to worry about missing chicken satay, because you can just make it with tofu. And honestly, if you marinate it nicely, like well, and you can get all of the same flavors. It's incredible. What have we got? Fantastic feasts for everybody. Oh, there's a katsu curry in here. Burnt aubergine salad, jammin' jambalaya with vegan sausages, jackfruit, tomatoes, onion, pepper, celery, garlic, thyme, some rice, lime, paprika, pepper, oregano. I mean, it's just absolutely packed full of goodness and will be so, so tasty. So that's Bosch. That's a really cool cookbook. And just before I go on to a couple of recipes, there's one book that when I moved over to America for a short period, I brought one book in my hand luggage because all the other books had to come by freight, by shipping. And I just wanted one to have some like plant-based recipes with me. And so I brought The Creative Kitchen, a seasonal plant-based recipe book for meals, drinks, garden and self-care by Stephanie Hafferty. And it's just full of really delicious, yummy plant-based stuff that, you know, if you're gardening, if you grow your own food, you've been down the allotment, it's all of the stuff that Steph has harvested from her garden. And you'll know that Steph is, she has a no-dig patch and she works with Charles Dowding as well to kind of spread the word about no-dig. Well, I'm just going to flick through a few pages and see what I come up with. Bean stew with red wine. Gooseberry salad. Oh, gooseberry salad. I can't wait for that. Which is gooseberries halved, 2 courgettes or summer squash, 2 carrots, 200 grams of peas, broad beans, sugar peas or mange 2, some olive oil, some lemon juice or vinegar, cider or apple cider vinegar or white wine vinegar, mint or basil and some maple syrup. There's actually, I notice in lots of plant-based recipes, there's always a little dash of maple syrup. So that's a really easy recipe, just bringing the pan of water to the boil, add the beans and peas, cook for a few minutes until they're tender, drain it and cool quickly by running under a cold tap. Or you can plunge into a bowl of ice water, and then you prepare the courgette and carrots by cutting into thin slices. You make the dressing by whisking together the oil, lemon juice or vinegar with herbs and seasoning. Then you place all of the vegetables in a mixing bowl, pour over the dressing and mix to coat everything and serve. Easy as that. And absolutely totally delicious. So yeah, there's tons of stuff in that book as well, which is really ace. So yeah, that's a couple of books and people who I follow online to get a lot of my recipes from. But thankfully, some of my guys on social media have sent me a couple of their favourite recipes. So I'm just going to read these ones to you because they're really quick and really easy. So make sure that you've got pen and paper to write these ones down. So this first one I'm actually going to try this weekend. So this is from the Allotment Cooks. And she posts loads of information about her allotment and some recipes. I mean, that might be in the name, yeah? You've guessed that, the Allotment Cooks. So this is mint and asparagus soup. You'll need 12 large asparagus spears, perfect timing, handful of mint, 1 potato, 1 onion, some veg stock, 1.5 pints of boiling water, 2 teaspoons of oil and 2 teaspoons of corn flour, and that's optional because that's only needed if you need to thicken up the soup later on. So it's super easy to make. You just chop up the veg, you leave 1 asparagus spear to the side, cook up all of the veg, then add in the shredded mint, and when they've all softened you add your veg stock, and when it's all cooked you basically blend it up. That's it. So that will be your mint and asparagus soup. And then you just top it off with the chopped saved asparagus spear to serve. And mint and asparagus go so well together. So delicious. Oh, so the Duck Patch. This is another amazing lady over on Instagram. Go follow her. So the Duck Patch has sent me her plant recipe, which is a vegan ragu. And this is another easy one as well to cook up. 500 grams of overnight soaked green lentils, 2 carrots blitzed into small pieces, 2 sticks of celery blitzed, 1 onion finely chopped, 100 grams of mushrooms blitzed, 1 times tin of chopped tomatoes, some passata, 3 teaspoons of mixed herbs, things like oregano, thyme, basil, parsley, sage, and Sometimes I'm told that she even throws in some wine. You'll need 3 cloves of garlic, which are minced, 1 teaspoon of balsamic vinegar and 2 teaspoons of sugar. Now, with any ragu, it's all about kind of cooking up, softening all the vegetables first before you add everything else in. I love one pot recipes because it saves on washing up basically, and it's much easier. I'm sure that Ali at the Duck Patch will happily tell you how to make that if you go and follow her online. So just before I finish up, my 2 favourite dishes. One is a mushroom bourguignon. I cannot even begin to tell you how delicious it is. And I won't run you through the recipe because we've got loads more recipes coming up. But if you Google it, there's lots of different ways of making it, but mushrooms are often used to replace kind of that meaty texture in plant-based dishes, because obviously you're not having the meat, but they do replace that. And I basically cook it up with the red wine and the sauce and the lots of mushrooms and onions, and then make it into a bourguignon. Honestly, it is delicious. And I have served this to people who are definite meat eaters, like my stepdad, like one of my friends, and they absolutely loved it. And one of my friends even asked me to give him the recipe so he could then pass it on to his friends as well. So Google vegan mushroom bourguignon. And one last thing, another really easy dish to make is a ramen. So you can use tofu to make a lovely, delicious ramen with some veg broth and some noodles and some lovely spring greens. So like spring onions, maybe some green beans, a bit of broccoli. So refreshing, but so filling. So on a plant-based diet, there's no need to miss out on any yummy food at all. I promise you. So next up it's Michael, and he's going to be telling you all about plant-based recipes, and he's got some awesome sound bites as well, so enjoy.
This episode of the Plant-Based Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Natural Grower. Visit naturalgrower.co.uk to nurture your soil and boost your plants and veg.
Hey guys, hope you're enjoying our plant-based recipes episode, which has got a lot of contributions from you guys at home. So I'm going to talk about some of my favorite kind of plant-based, kind of veg, fruit kind of recipes. And then I'm going to hand it over to some of you guys. So you've actually been giving us some ideas for broad beans, edible flowers, even something a bit alcoholic as well. So, ooh. So anyway, just so everybody knows, my favorite vegetable is a broad bean and my favorite fruit is a raspberry. Always been the same ever since childhood. I find them kind of, both of those things, I find them quite magical. Like raspberries, I just adore that kind of slightly sharp flavour. I'm really keen on bitter flavours actually. I don't know what the psychology behind that is. And before you ask, yes, I like coriander as well. Raspberries, I don't have a recipe for raspberries necessarily. I like to have them kind of unadulterated. Broad beans though, ever since I was a kid, I've eaten broad beans with brown sauce. It's really incredible, but a little bit crazy. But anyway, since I'm an adult, I've actually cooked them in a more grown-up way from time to time though. And one of my favourite things to do, and I probably make this once a week, is to boil some broad beans if I have them in season, but also some French beans, tip out a can of cannellini beans or butter beans, and then mix all of that up with balsamic vinegar, olive oil and mustard. And that is my kind of like French bean kind of salad. So I can often be seen eating that almost 3 times a week. I've always got a massive bowl on the go in the fridge. So please tell me it's healthy. Yes. Something else I do a lot is I roast vegetables, because somehow it is a lot less effort just to put vegetables on a tray in the oven than it is to fill a saucepan of water and boil it. Isn't that weird? It seems so much easier for some reason. I guess because you don't have to drain it, and that's so labor intensive, of course. So yeah, I mean, roasting is great, but you've got to have patience. So sweet potato takes almost 40-50 minutes. I'm quite lazy. Obviously, I'm not keen on the boiling part, so I wouldn't parboil anything. I would literally just sit and wait for it to cook in the oven. I usually would use a lower temperature because I feel like that cooks it through rather than kind of too quickly and burns the outside without cooking the middle. Oh my God, have I become Nigella? I'm actually giving you cooking tips here. Who'd have thought? But also, I love to roast the usual suspects, so things like peppers, tomatoes, but add those in the last 10 minutes, aubergines as well. But also, one of my favorites is kale. I literally adore roasting kale, especially the big long spears of Cavallo Nero. Just a little bit of salt on top, spray with olive oil, 20 minutes. Oh, it's gorgeous. Don't let it go too crispy. When I first started this recipe, I was doing it like kind of crispy seaweed style. But you don't need to do it that far. Actually, just go it until it's kind of limp and it's really, really tasty and so good for you. It makes you poo. Actually, I have to say, even though you guys know I'm a meat eater, which is very different to Ellen, my compadre on this podcast, but I do eat... Do I eat a lot of meat? I'm not sure. I kind of change my habit and my kind of trend all the time. But when I do eat more plant-based products, I know that that's good for me, if you get what I mean. Like, you know, regular solids. So, yeah, it's sometimes it's kind of a case of being bothered. Like, there's not so many snack foods that are plant-based necessarily, but maybe you guys can advise me on that. Something else I have cooked a bit recently is what I call vegetable jumble. And this is literally just lots of vegetables like fried in a pan. And then when I put it on the plate, it's like this pile of vegetables. It's like a wasteland of veg. And then, I know this isn't vegan for the vegan listeners, but then I will fry an egg and put that on the top. And then when you cut through that egg, you eat the egg, it just kind of melts its yolk onto those gorgeous vegetables. And it is, yeah, Michael's vegetable jumble. I've always been a fan of tofu as well in any format, but also perhaps a bigger fan of tempeh. And tempeh is like... it's fermented soya beans, but it's not as processed as tofu. So it's literally like kind of pressed fermented soya beans, like into a kind of little cake. It's really, really cool. I had it a lot when we were in Bali a couple of years ago. And to have like a fried, like little steak of tempeh with satay sauce is just the dream. It is incredible. So... Anyway, I'm not officially a cook, so I can't give you any of these recipes with any accuracy, or I can't tell you that they're going to turn out perfectly, but I can hand you over to some of our followers who've actually given us a really cool selection of recipes, from plant-based naan breads through to creme de cassis and something to do with your broad beans. So, over to you guys.
Hi, it's Rebecca, aka Plant Based Bitch on Instagram. My favourite plant-based recipe to make is naan bread because it's super easy. You just mix the same weight of self-raising flour and soy or dairy alternative plain yoghurt. Roll it out, put it in a frying pan with some oil, garlic and salt, and it makes some naan bread.
Hello, it's Lizzie from the Rose Press Garden on Instagram. I thought I would send across my favourite plant-based foods. My personal favourite is going round the garden and picking up pansies, violas, calendula, all of those sorts of things, loads of edible flowers, and putting them into my salads to make them vibrant and colourful. I'm also an absolute sucker for homemade hummus. Get a tin of chickpeas, drain the water out, plonk it into a blender, add some oil, a bit of lemon zest, some garlic, and voila, you have the best homemade hummus that you could dream of. Enjoy!
Hello, my name's Alex and you might know me as the Essex Allotment. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll be familiar with my pictures and stories and know that I love to grow my own produce. Well, I've got a tasty little recipe for you that's dead easy to do, and it's based around the broad bean. Broad beans are super easy to grow and readily available in all supermarkets and farm shops, so why not grab yourself a few or grow yourself some and try this super little recipe. So this recipe is a cross between beans on toast and smashed avocado on toast. And what you'll need is 300 grams of broad beans, a handful of rocket, 1 clove of garlic, half a lemon for the zest and juice, 75 mils of extra virgin olive oil, and some toast to serve it on. As I said, it's super easy. So you're going to start by blanching your broad beans and double pod them. Now you're going to take just a quarter of those broad beans and put them in a food processor along with the rocket and garlic, the lemon zest and lemon juice, olive oil and some seasoning. Once you've blitzed all that up, add the remaining beans and pulse it a few times, but keep it nice and chunky. Spoon the mixture onto your toast and there you have it, you're done. If you like your food to have a bit of a kick, why not sprinkle some chili flakes on? And there you have it, a super quick and super easy recipe for you to enjoy. Thanks for listening.
Hi Michael, hi Ellen, it's Jane from Allotment Cooks. I have sent you my creme de cassis recipe. Now, obviously, normally what I would do with lots and lots of blackcurrants is loads of preserves and jams and so on. However, quite often I just have too many. So what else is a girl to do but to actually put it into liqueur? It's a really, really easy recipe, and quite frankly, once you've done this, you can just about turn any soft fruit into alcohol. So it's a great recipe. Give it a try. It's so easy.
Hello, it's Becky here from So Much More, and my favourite plant-based recipe at the moment is radish leaf pesto. And not many people use radish leaves because they don't look particularly appealing. They're hairy little things. But so to help them not go to waste, you can make pesto out of them, and it's super easy. You just have to shove some radish leaves into a blender with some nuts, some olive oil, a clove of garlic, a little bit of salt and some hard cheese if you want, and just spin it up in the blender and pop it over your pasta. It's so good, and it makes use of all those leaves that might otherwise go to waste.
Hi, I'm Terry Westgate from Norwich. My Twitter handle is @TerryWestgate. My plant-based food tip is tofu. I really like tofu, but I don't really like it when it's all squidgy and falls apart. So before I cook it in a stew or a stir fry, I cut it into cubes, I coat it in oil, and I bake it in the oven for 20 to 30 minutes, turning it a couple of times, and then it gives it a nice sort of crispy edge to it, and it kind of keeps it in nice shape. And it adds, if you use nice oil as well, it can add a nice flavour to the tofu before you add it to your main dish.
Hi, I'm Sophie from Agents of Field, and I'm here to talk to you about homegrown homemade pesto. We eat it with spaghetti, and it's my go-to weeknight dinner at this time of year. It's quick, it's easy, and it's so adaptable you can make it from whatever leaves you're currently harvesting. Obviously basil is the traditional choice, but our basil isn't quite ready yet. What we have got is spinach. There's loads of it coming through in our kitchen garden just now, so I've been using this. But I've also made pesto from stinging nettles, kale and rocket. Basically anything green and leafy can be bashed up with oil, garlic, nuts and parmesan to make a delicious supper. The other great thing about pesto is you really don't have to be exact with the quantities, you can improvise. Last night, for example, I was making dinner for 2 of us and I filled a colander with spinach leaves. I guess it was probably about 100-150 grams in weight. I'm not entirely sure, and it doesn't really matter. I wilt the spinach in boiling water for a minute on the hob and then drain it, carefully squeezing out all the excess water. I chop the spinach finely and add it to a large bowl. I add 3 cloves of finely chopped garlic, a small handful of freshly grated parmesan, and plenty of salt and pepper. Toasted pine nuts are traditionally added to pesto, but again, use what you have to hand. I didn't have any pine nuts when I was making this yesterday, but I did find a packet of cashews in the back of the cupboard, so I chucked a handful of these into a frying pan and dry fried them for a few minutes before adding them to the bowl. Finally, I pour over a good glug of extra virgin olive oil and a squeeze of lemon juice, and then, using the end of a rolling pin, I bash the hell out of it. It's very therapeutic. You could do it properly in a pestle and mortar or even a blender, but I'm all about minimising the washing up, so I make it in a large bowl, cook my spaghetti, and then toss the pasta into the bowl of pesto at the end, making sure everything is evenly coated. And then you serve it. Easy peasy. For more recipes and ideas, head over to agentsoffield.com, or you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Agents of Field. Thanks for listening.
Well, so this gossip for this episode, it's all about being in bed with Michael Perry. He's actually in his bed. Absolutely crazy.
In like silk pajamas.
The fact that you have silk pajamas makes me giggle so much.
Well, do you know the best piece of advice I've ever been given?
What?
If you buy silk pajamas, don't buy silk sheets as well.
You'll literally slide out of bed. When you roll over, you'll hit the floor.
T-shirt, lovely Ellen. Did you make it yourself?
My T-shirt? Thanks. It's a tie-dye T-shirt. No, I didn't make it myself. This is very cool, I'll have you know.
Yeah, it's really nice, I have to say. Sorry, genuine.
Yeah. I genuinely think you in silk pajamas is hilarious. But you know that you're meant to have a silk pillow, don't you? So apparently silk pillows are really good for your skin and really good for your hair and stuff.
Oh, really? Okay.
Mm.
I have a pillow between my knees. Is that good enough?
Why?
Because it's good for you. Because I think if your legs are on top of each other, then it's too much pressure on your hips.
Right.
Yeah, something like that. So that's a good bit of advice for you, Ellen.
Well, yes, it certainly is. Thanks. I'll put a pillow between my legs tonight instead of anything else. Oh, you broke up then. That's a shame.
Oh.
What did you have for your dinner tonight? Let's talk about food. What did you eat for your dinner?
I had a picniculus, which is the medieval word for picnic.
A picniculus? What did you...
Did you know that?
Crazy. What did you have in your picnic? What food did you have?
Quail's eggs, liver, medieval food. My friend is from Sicily, which is in Italy, in case you didn't know, Ellen. And he made an aubergine. No, not an aubergine. Well, an aubergine. A parmigiana, which is aubergine, passata, and cheese. I find it hard to think when I'm horizontal. Sorry.
It's like all the brain cells go to the back of your head.
Hang on.
Sit up. So two things about that. I've never heard anyone say aubergine before. Aubergine. Is that what it's called? I thought it was aubergine.
Oh, I don't know, Ellen.
Aubergine.
Oh.
And also,
eggplant.
Yeah, let's call it eggplant, then that's it. We're all clear. And the other thing is, you didn't have anything plant-based in your picnic.
What do you mean? What's a bloody aubergine then?
Oh, but you had cheese. I mean, it wasn't a plant-based picnic.
Oh, not doing that vegan cheese stuff. I did it once and it tasted of coconut.
It tasted of coconut. Do you not like coconut?
Never again. But we also had some salami, so that's plant-based. Chorizo, cabanos, what else? And lots of crusty bread. That's plant-based, isn't it? Is it?
No.
Well,
bread isn't classed as plant-based. No, so plant-based. If you have, so it's basically, obviously you can eat bread as a vegan if it, doesn't have any animal product in it. Some breads do. Some breads have milk and egg, or they're made in a factory where there's milk and egg, so there'll be a warning on it,
Yeah, I always forget about eggs.
I forgot what I was even going to say now, but so bread can be vegan, but it's not plant-based. So a plant-based diet is like whole foods plant-based, basically. So it's like all nuts, vegetables, fruits, your legumes, that kind of thing. It's all whole food plant-based, and like bread isn't whole food plant-based.
So not Milano salami, no?
I'd probably say that'd be very low down the list.
Right, now I know. I'm going to write that down on a notepad. Salami is not plant-based. But we also... Prosecco, is that plant-based?
Prosecco. Prosecco is usually
And,
not vegan, that is for sure. It's usually, there's some kind of additive or something that goes into most Prosecco to help it carbonate or whatever. I can't remember the terms or whatever. But apparently, yeah.
It's a minefield, isn't it? Jeez.
I think once you get your head around it, you know what's what. But in the beginning, it's just a learning process, and sometimes you might forget, might slip up, you might not realise, but that's okay, you know.
Oh, don't you love that we're like the yin and yang of our podcast, because like you're plant-based and I'm like the absolute opposite. Isn't that great? But that means that in all seriousness we bring such different skills to the fore.
Well, you bring meat and I bring apples.
Yeah, but it's like we should get a comparison, like not blunt, not like Bonnie and Clyde, but like what are real opposites. No, not
the
more
song,
convinced.
like Opposites Attract, Paula Abdul.
Yeah.
I love that song.
Oh, God. Yeah, like I'll have to think of something there. I'm on the verge of telling a good joke, but I'm not quite there. I need to prop myself up a bit more.
I was going to say, I think it's because you're still laying down. The brain cells aren't there. Did you have a favourite recipe from the podcast? Did you have one that you really liked the sound of on the podcast?
I didn't listen to him, Ellen. No, I did. I'm so sorry. I just passed them on. I don't know what they've said. They might be swearing, all sorts. No, there was her screen name is plant-based, which is a rude word, and she had a plant-based recipe for a naan bread. Would you believe?
Nice.
And someone else mashed up some broad beans.
Nice. To make like hummus?
Well, like crushed pea.
Because
stuff.
you can make. Because you can you can make hummus from broad beans instead of chickpeas, and I learnt that from Hayley's Lottie Haven. She told me that.
Oh, I love broad beans. They're my favourite vegetable, Ellen.
See, they're not mine. There we go, opposites again. I don't really like them. That's why she told me if I grow them, then I could make a hummus from them.
But they have such a frustratingly short season.
They just don't. I don't understand. I don't understand what's so nice about them. I just don't. I don't get it.
Oh, God, I used to eat them with brown sauce.
Nah.
There was also a recipe for creme de cassis. I made limoncello once.
Yeah.
Have you ever made?
I've never made
easy.
it.
Just lemon peels and vodka and caster sugar. Yeah.
There's so many things that we buy that are really easy to make ourselves, you know, but you kind of like, it's convenience, isn't it? You just go and you're like, oh, want some limoncello, so you go buy it. It's convenience. But there's a ton of stuff we can just make ourselves.
Well, it takes being a lockdown housewife to then understand that, doesn't it?
Just like you in your silk pyjamas in bed at 10 o'clock at night. Busy in the house all day today.
And Ellen, you've been creative. I see that you've been florifying everything in sight. I'm surprised you haven't dressed your cupboards in bloody moss.
No, but there's a load
so
of
that your tins can sit on a grassy floor.
Can you see this moss behind me? This is all moss.
You buy Jesus, Mary and Joseph.
I'm going to put some of that on my pots to retain some moisture. Because obviously I haven't got a garden. I've been going slightly insane. And I've been floralising all kinds of different things. I've got more to come as well next week.
I like the hair clip.
It was cool, wasn't it? It's so cute.
Did you put moss on the hair clip?
I put moss and then wood shavings and fern foliage.
You stick them on or what?
Yeah, with glue. So, like, if you're going somewhere to a wedding or a party, you don't have to buy. What?
If I go to a wedding or something, I'll wear moss on my head. Yeah.
It looks cool.
That's basically what you're saying, really.
Yeah.
Would it not smell by the end of the evening?
You can floralise a hair clip and go like out with it. You know. Someone said to me. Someone messaged me on Twitter and said that it's given her a really nice memory because in the 70s that's actually what they used to do to go to like dances and like proms and the school discos and stuff. Yeah, they actually used to make their own like hair grips and put real flowers on them.
Oh, that's cute. What, before they used to go there by Zoom?
Yeah.
In the olden days.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't bother making one just to like wear for Zooming you.
Have you ever been on a real group Zoom?
Yes.
What's the most people you've been on with?
I think it depends. Oh, right. So I done with my friends a few weeks ago. We had a Zoom quiz night, and there was 8 couples, I think, on that one. That was really good. And then I done a webinar today that had quite a few people on. I think like a webinar's up to 100 people, but as a meeting, I'm not really sure, like 40 people or something like that. I can't remember.
Like with your friends, because I've managed to avoid anything like as a big group. I think maybe Garden Day, that was the biggest, but then they were in control of it, so they were unmuting people at the right points.
Yeah.
But like when you do a quiz with friends and 8 screens, how does anyone know when to talk?
Well, it was like a quiz, and I was like the quiz master, so I could control everyone's mute and video and stuff. And because it was a quiz, everyone obviously stays quiet when you read out a question because they want to know the question. So it worked totally fine.
So there was no small talk?
There was small talk, there was plenty, but while I was adding up the scores, everyone was having a drink and having a chat. Yeah, and it was fine. Everyone seemed to, it wasn't a problem. Yeah.
But it's not like in real life when, like, if we were all in the living room, like maybe there's 8 people and you might have like 3 different conversations that are kind of crossing over each other. You can't do that online, can you?
No, but say we had 8 squares on the screen, yeah?
Yeah.
And when the person is talking, you get like a green band around that square so you can see who is talking. So you sort of don't talk over because you're listening to what they say and then you talk and it goes green so people can see who's talking when.
Yeah, true. But like in a room, in real life, people would talk at the same time because you could easily hear. Yeah, but I guess they wouldn't all be sitting on top of each other, would they? Yeah.
Maybe not everyone talks over everyone, Michael.
Yeah. You know what it's like? You can be in a room and there's like, you know, the men are talking about all that cool stuff and Top Gear and shit like that. And then the girls are talking about, you know, all the cooler stuff.
That is the most sexist thing ever.
You what?
That's the most sexist thing ever.
I said football.
You need to sit up because those brain cells need to come back to the front of your head.
Do you know what though, Ellen? I've got to say my TV is getting on my nuts because like every time BBC, every time the programme finishes, it plays me damn Top Gear.
Huh?
I don't want to watch Top Gear. How can I disable that?
Why does
when
do
it
that?
like suggests the thing that you might want to watch next? It always like suggests bloody Top Gear and then starts playing it in the background, and then I turn around and I got bloody Top Gear. I don't want Top Gear.
Is it?
Why do I want to watch Top Gear with those stupid games? Honestly, no, it's really irritating, Ellen, because you know I might be in the middle of an EastEnders marathon. And then suddenly it throws me out and puts me on Top Gear. I actually tweeted them yesterday. I'm sick of it.
What, and told them to stop?
Yeah, I'm incensed. What are you doing? Lost attention with me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm completely not paying attention to you. I got bored because you were talking about cars.
Yeah, but I was talking about how much I didn't like the car programme.
I'm literally not interested in cars whatsoever.
The minute you hear the words.
Yeah, it's like everything turns off. So when we, probably every single time we have been car shopping, I have been hungover. And I think the reason is that when I know we have to go car shopping, I just drink more the night before to take my mind off it. And then every single time I've been hungover, so now I refuse to go car shopping.
Yeah, like if you don't mind what car is chosen, then you don't have to go.
No, I just want a car that goes from A to B. I don't care about the rest.
As long as you don't like moan about what then arrives, then you're all right.
Well, I don't know. It depends. I might do, but you know.
You. How's your veggie pod? Didn't you have a tornado? Did it get whipped up in it?
Yeah, we had a tornado. No, I actually haven't checked, but the tornado came right through over us, and My husband attempted to save a couple of pots and basically got drenched, as did half of our living room as well. So that was fun.
Hero.
It was a bit mad. I think it's fine. I didn't hear any crashing or banging. The building shook, especially with the thunder. Our whole apartment kind of shook with the thunder.
Oh my God, that's mad, isn't it?
It's so
You'll never
strange.
talk about the weather in England again.
I will enjoy the calmness of the weather in England.
I have to say, Ellen, though, this lockdown has obviously been difficult for many people for many different reasons, but can you imagine it with bad weather?
It'd be horrible.
In England, I appreciate you haven't been here, but there's probably been only 2 or 3 days of bad weather.
Yeah.
It's absolute blessing. And I think, if we learn one thing coming out of lockdown, it's kind of the weather isn't that bad after all.
In England, everyone talks and complains about the weather all of the time, and then you kind of go other places and think we really shouldn't do that. It's not that bad. I know it doesn't get boiling hot and or anymore. It doesn't tend to get minus 10 degrees or anything, but I know it varies, but it's not so bad.
Yeah.
No tornadoes anyway.
God, that's just mad that there's tornadoes.
And we're just entering hurricane season now as well. So that's from June to November. So it's quite a long time for hurricanes. So what happens is the heat builds up massively. It gets over 90 degrees, and then the hurricanes come through. But I will be hopefully in England by June, so I will miss out on those. And then I come back hopefully to America again in October when the hurricane season is all over.
But would there normally be damage or what?
It depends. I mean, they're all different, and it depends on where they go through. I guess it depends on preparations. A lot of the damage here is the trees, because there's some really, really, really big old trees, and then building work's gone on around the trees and pathways, and so the roots have been cut, and so they're not as stable. And then if it's a downpour of water and the soil is moist, and then a hurricane or tornado comes through and the trees just can't cope with it, so they go over, and they do actually hit buildings. They go into buildings. So you get a lot of damage from trees down mainly, but otherwise not so bad.
That is just insane. I think the weather in England is not so bad, and I think we should be thankful we never have to deal with such natural disasters.
Yeah.
I know flooding in recent years, but hurricanes, tornadoes, they're commonplace where you are, but here don't even exist, do they?
No.
Well,
thankfully, no. So
apart from that 87 hurricane, do you remember?
What's that? No, I don't remember that.
What? You were alive?
Yeah, but I don't remember it.
Yeah, it was quite a momentous day. A roof tile hit my bedroom window.
Oh, well, that's why you remember it.
And there were loads of fences down and trees. Yeah, it was when Michael Fish, the weatherman, said there was no hurricane, and then there was.
He was like, everything will be fine, there's nothing to worry about. And then the hurricane came through. Yeah, I do remember that.
Where have we heard that before?
Well, you're yawning now, and I think, obviously you need to roll over and go to sleep.
I slipped down the bed, obviously, in my silk pyjamas. I must have a pillow that's quite nylon, which has just got me shooting down the bed.
What are you
if it was cotton, it would give me some traction. You're bloody crazy,
you
honestly.
Are absolutely mental. Okay, well, it's been so lovely talking to you. I now have to go and clean up all the water in my living room.
Wait till it dries. It will dry then.
I don't know how it will just dry. It's like a massive puddle.
Oh dear. Okay then, bye.
I'm hoping that you're going to end on a quip, because that's what you usually do.
I think you should cut it off as we laugh into the distance. When old 80s songs would just fade into the distance?
Yeah.
We could do that. So just laugh, but fade it out.
Okay,
let's do that.
Let's do that, and then let's see how well our lovely editor does that. Are you ready?
Okay. No, but you've got to fade it out yourself.
I can't fade it out. How do I do that? Gareth will have to do that.
Laugh out. Go from
fade your own laugh out.
Right.
Okay, you ready? Go. I can't stop laughing.
Oh, God, you ruined it.
This episode of the Plant-Based Podcast is brought to you by our friends at Natural Grower. Launched in 2019, their award-winning liquid fertiliser and soil conditioner is made entirely from maize. Naturally rich in nitrogen, potash, phosphate and other trace elements that plants and vegetables love. It is approved by the Soil Association, Vegan Society and Organic Farmers and Growers. Visit naturalgrower.co.uk to nurture your soil and boost your plants and veg. Enter PBP15 for a 15% discount as a PBP subscriber.
Thanks for listening. You should now be at least 25% more obsessed by plants.
Please follow us on social media. You'll find us by typing in the Plant-Based Podcast.
We also have a fabulous website. Go to theplantbasedpodcast.net.
So tell your friends, leave a review. Why not write a letter to your local MP? Please spread the word about the Plant-Based Podcast.
Oh yes, see you next time, plant friends. The theme music for the Plant-Based Podcast is an excerpt from the song Grow by Mikey James, and our editing is done by Gareth Patch of Semi Echo.